All right, guys. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast back again. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
We've got a special guest today. We've got Chad Holmes from Midwest Whitetail. Thanks for joining us, Chad. I really appreciate it, dude.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Yeah. You know, it's funny as I have all these questions wrote out, and I think I'm just going to skip, or I'm just going to dive into it. Yeah. I was talking about this. I was telling Nick this before we started. I was thinking about, Chad, how I kind of first really met you. And the first time I really actually got to have a good conversation with you was at that, it was at the Midwest Whitetail, the summer get-together event that you guys have. It was at that, that little state park.
Yep.
That nature center thing. And Chad just walks up, and he's like, and he just starts talking away, you know, and he's like, oh man, dude, he's like, I swear by these Ozonics. He's like, I've been using those. And he starts just telling me like story after story. He starts pulling out his phone. He's got all these videos he's showing me of like, this deer was directly downwind. And then one day I went out, like I didn't have my Ozonics. My buddy had it. And he shot this buck. And then this deer winded me because I didn't have my Ozonics with me. Yeah. And it was pretty funny.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Have been a huge advocate for Ozonics for a long time. And, you know, even this year, I find myself, you know, how many years have we been working together now, right? It's been a long time.
Yep,
and,
it absolutely has.
But even now, first thing I do, I'm like taking my cell phone out and like, look, straight downwind, you know, and put those Ozonics. And man, it's just amazing, you know, that the advantage that you get when you use the Ozonics correctly. And now I've got my boys, they do it. And the funny story, you know, like you were talking about the buddy of mine who borrowed my Ozonics that afternoon. He was hunting with me, and basically, Nick, what happened was we had sit in a blind together the previous day, and the wind wasn't right, and he was all like, man, this ain't good. I'm like, hey, don't guide the guide here, okay? I got this. And so we put the Ozonics up, you know, have the, you know, where the wind is funneling out of the blind, and of course I've got my Ozonics set up where it's covering our scent as it goes out the blind, and we have deer come in like 5 or 6 yards straight downwind. I'm talking about bucks and mature does. Yep. And they never know we're there, and they just come on out, and so he just starts freaking out. He's like, man, I've got to get one of those things. I've got to get one of those things. So fast forward into the night, and we're getting ready to hunt, and he's like, I want to ask you a question. I said, okay. He said, how would you feel about me using your Ozonics tomorrow? I said, well, that's fine. You know, he was my guest, and I was okay with that. And so I gave him the Ozonics, and I went and sit in a different spot. Well, sure enough, here comes a mature buck, circles, gets downwind, blows out, and I hadn't let him live it down ever since. But the funniest part of that story is that he left with my Ozonics.
Of course.
So I have lost more Ozonics that way than man. I'm like, Cole, I need to get another Ozonic.
Well, dude, that's even like the first time I used Ozonics. I was guiding out in Colorado, and Scott came on that elk hunt, and I flat out told him before he left, I said, I'm sorry, man, but I cannot let you leave with those things. I said, I'll wrestle you for them. You know, he's a big guy. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he's like, you'll wrestle me? I said, if I have to. I said, I don't want to, but I will. I was like, you got to leave these here. Yeah. You know, so yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's crazy because I feel like we kind of sound like a broken record, but I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, man, once you use it and you see it work, you know, and if you don't use it, you don't understand, right? But once you see it work and that light bulb goes on and those gears kind of start to turn, you know, I always, you know, the other story that I always relate to is like Thermacell. Yeah. I'll never forget, I was on a black bear hunt years and years ago. I was in Northwest Ontario, and I'd never used a Thermacell. And this guy that let me borrow his, and he said, man, I'm like, do these things really work? He's like, yeah, man, these Thermacells work. And he goes, if you don't think it works, he goes, just shut it off. Yeah. He's like, just shut it off when you're out there. So I was out sitting in a stand. I'm like, oh, it's just bugs aren't bad today. You know, mosquitoes aren't bad. And I'm sitting there. So I'm like, I'm just going to turn this thing off. I turn it off. In 5 minutes, I'm just getting swarmed. And that's what it feels like with an Ozonics. Yeah. It's like, if you don't think it works, shut it off. And if you ever have to shut it off, if it's raining, you got to put it away. You get deer on the downwind side, they wind you. Yeah. I mean, we even went out this last spring. Yep. We take Ozonics in the spring just because I'm always trying to run units and we're testing stuff and going through stuff. But for whatever reason that day, I was like, you know, let's just not, you know what I mean? It was like, for some reason, I think I didn't have a battery charge or whatever. I'm like, it's turkey hunting, it's fine. Yeah. So we didn't bring it. The way the wind was, it was kind of a southwest wind. That doe came across that field. And I told you, I said, you watch what happens. Yep. And she just came walking across the field like nobody cared. she got on that downwind side and she just froze.
Yeah.
I mean, locked up, stomping her foot, looking our way, circled downwind even harder.
Yep.
Started blowing and just blew as far as she could go as she ran off.
Yep.
And that's what happens.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Like I said, it's just fun to see how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what was the funny thing, Chad, for me, with that whole story that I was telling at the beginning with like when I first met you, sometimes for me, like I said, my background, I used to be a guide, but I also used to be a videographer. Yep. And I worked for a guy in Colorado that I filmed for, and he had television shows and we had a lot of different manufacturers that we worked with. And so we had a lot of deliverables or obligations that we called them that we had to do. But the funny thing with that as well is like, when I started working in Ozonics, I kind of had that perspective.
Yeah.
But when I started to travel to consumer shows and go places, sometimes I feel like it's really hard to have genuine conversation.
Yep. Because
inherently in this day and age, and I'm not saying this is a negative, it's just how it is. I mean, we're talking to Chad from Midwest Whitetail here, but it's like, there's a lot of people trying to video hunts, and what I feel like ends up happening is you end up, I feel like a lot of people just want something from you.
Yep.
It's like, it's kind of sometimes really hard to have genuine conversation. And I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character when it comes to running into people, and I can get a pretty good read on you pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I got a really good read off of Chad when I first met him. And you could tell that he wasn't telling me anything to just try to butter me up.
No.
Like he was just telling me because he really believed in it.
Yeah. Well, and like when Cole first told me that story about meeting Chad, I'm like, Chad, he full on genuinely believes in Ozonics.
Yeah.
Like what you told me is 100% true. Like he's one of the biggest advocates for it.
Yeah. And it's like my whole thing is like when we have people walk up like, hey man, how do we partner up? How do we work something out? I'm like, man, use it. Like go out and buy one. Like, we're running great sales, whatever it might be, like get one and use it and have a good experience, video your hunts, and then come talk to me. You know what I mean? It's like I knew that Chad had already just been using it and he swore by it.
Yeah.
And so that worked out great for us.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But Chad, I kind of wanted to, I think part of what we're going to try to talk about today is, obviously we know a lot about Midwest Whitetail, but I think there's people that maybe don't, you know, like even around here. I mean, it's funny because like my brother-in-law is a perfect example. I've talked about Midwest Whitetail. He doesn't follow a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? But I kind of want to go through just kind of ask a little bit of some obvious questions. But right off the bat, I just kind of wanted to ask a little bit about you. I mean, you're not from Iowa. I know you're from Mississippi. If you could just talk to us a little bit about who you are, married, kids, just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm originally from Alabama and just recently relocated to Mississippi a couple years ago. My wife and I bought some property up here. My grandparents on my mother's side moved up here when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I just kind of fell in love with the place. I've always been an outdoorsman, and my dad introduced me to hunting and fishing and things like that at a very, very young age. I think my first hunting trip, I was 3 or 4 years old. And, with that being said, as I got older, I came up here a lot and realized that in the South, the hunting, up here was just so much better than where I lived at. And so I stayed on my wife for about 24 years before she finally let me make the decision to relocate up here. And so we are in central Mississippi now. But man, I've been married 25 years and got 3 kids. My oldest is a girl. She's 23 years old now and just recently got married. And Kobe, my middle son, he's 21 and he plays college baseball. And then my youngest is 16 and he's a junior in high school here. And so the good Lord's been good to us, man. I've been blessed with a lot of things that I know I don't deserve. So I'm thankful for what I have. But yeah, man, my background, I actually was in engineering prior to being in the position that I'm in now. I was in what they call preventive predictive maintenance engineering with rotating equipment. So basically what we would do is, through vibration analysis, infrared thermography, things like that, we would go into these, for instance, power plant that generates power to all of our homes. And we would be able to dictate an issue before it actually happened, so that there was no catastrophic failures or anything that would cause outages. So anyway, long story short, I grew in from that position into the management role and just started managing, different companies and overseeing sales and those kinds of things. And joined Midwest Whitetail. I guess it was 2010, and as just a pro staff member. Come on, loved hunting. Bill Winke was looking to expand the pro staff and kind of get in that southeastern region, and so I sent him an email, and everything kind of fell into place and worked out, and I came on board. And then several years ago, there was of course a transition in ownership, and the new ownership had approached me about coming on, and it ended up working out. And so now I pretty much oversee partnerships, financials, things like that. So with the company.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. With that said, so how do you feel like, again, you've been being with Midwest Whitetail since 2010. You were with Midwest Whitetail obviously all the way through kind of, when Bill Winke was a major part of everything, and now kind of post Bill Winke. How do you feel like Midwest Whitetail has changed from when it was with Bill Winke to now kind of post Bill Winke? What, like, from, even from a videography perspective, or just from, how Midwest Whitetail, is portrayed? What do you think the big difference is, kind of with with Bill Winke and now kind of post Bill Winke?
Sure. Well, let me rewind, so those guys who don't know much about Midwest Whitetail.
Yeah.
Bill Winke founded it in 2008. So we're actually celebrating 15 years this year. So Midwest Whitetail's been in existence 15 years. When Bill came in and started and laid that foundation, man, he built a solid foundation, done a phenomenal job. It's one thing I can say about Bill. He's always been ahead of the game, always been a visionary, and just really understood what it was going to take to continue to grow and develop and be in the industry a long time. And so long before the YouTube days, Bill created those semi-live episodes on the website, the MidwestWhitetail.com website. And so he went from just himself and, a cameraman. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Thad Moss, sort of started out with Bill in the early days. And he would, Bill was an outdoor writer and photographer, and, so he basically had Thad come in. Thad would film, kind of be his model when he would take, photographs and different things like that. And it grew from that to, Bill had this great idea about interns and bringing interns in and training them and, kind of developing them so that they could understand, like, how they could, produce and get these hunts in the eyes of, the general public in a way that tells a story. And, it grew from that to creating a pro staff, and, from pro staff members, of course, partnerships grew. And so Bill laid a foundation that basically allowed us to have what we have today. If he wouldn't have built that foundation, we couldn't be having this conversation right now. Right. So I tip my hat, to Bill and the job that he did creating Midwest Whitetail.
Well, dude, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I graduated high school in 2013. Yeah. Or excuse me, 2013. I graduated 2003. And I remember a buddy of mine named Dan. He was obsessed with MidwestWhitetail.com. And I remember him showing me one time, like at his house, he's like, "Hey, check this out." This is before cell phones. Like you didn't have an iPhone. Yeah. We had flip phones, Nokia phones. You know what I mean? It was like when you texted, it was like AAA 123 DBB RRR. It's like send a message. Yeah. But dude, he would get on there every day, and that was at that time. Remember, that was the shtick. He had daily videos. Yeah. Every day was a new hunting video, and he would get on there every day and watch these videos. And I remember, I still think you guys should come out with like a retro line of Midwest Whitetail gear, because I love that original Midwest Whitetail logo. I'll never forget that. Oh yeah. But he would watch them every day, and that's how I first heard about it. And then you go to the Iowa Deer Classic and you'd see him. He'd have a booth or whatever, and that was that was how I kind of experienced Midwest Whitetail.
Right.
You know, back then it was you either watched it on the outdoor channel or you bought DVDs.
Yep.
But then that was really he really kind of started something for a long time, kind of plowed his own road.
Yep.
With doing these videos and just posting them on a website. He wasn't on the outdoor channel. Like was his thing.
Yeah.
And that was where it really, from my perspective, that's what I remember how it all started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was, like I said, he was just so ahead of his time. Cause I mean, now if you think about it, we are in the digital age, right?
Yep.
Everybody's trying to create, their stuff on apps and YouTube and just getting into this digital world. And,
yep.
and like I said, 15 years ago, he was already there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was phenomenal to watch him, do the things that he did. And like I said, he had a huge impact on me and has inspired me. And I wouldn't be here today, honestly, without it. It's
right.
One of those things that I think one day he'll look back and I don't think he realizes how many people he's impacted in this industry that he doesn't even know that he's touched and reached. And, I think that says a lot for who he is and, what he's been able to accomplish through Midwest Whitetail. And with that being said, like anything else, things evolve, things, begin to change. And I think that that's one thing that we've been able to do is kind of continue to evolve in the industry itself and, begin to, I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch the episode this week or not, but that launched yesterday. I mean, that may be one of the most epic hunts in Midwest Whitetail history. Seriously. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really get into the details of that production, the storytelling, the ups, the downs, just the quality of content that was created during this whole process, I think that's what that's who we are today is we've taken what Bill's brought to the table and we've evolved in that. And, the cinematic view's gotten better. The storytelling's gotten better. The detail, the attention to detail has gotten better. And then we're still putting in that educational drive that Bill was so good at. So to answer your question, I think that the difference between the original couple of years of Midwest Whitetail and the 2023 Midwest Whitetail is simply we've just continued to evolve. Same foundation, but just evolve more in understanding where we're going from a content creation standpoint, what the viewers are looking for. It's no longer, I know that this particular episode was, an hour, 15 minutes, something like that, which is long form, a lot longer than our impatient society likes to buy into. Yep. But understanding that we can still create a long form version of a story that still grabs people and brings them and draws them in and makes them feel like they're right there with you. But on the flip side, we're also putting out some of the best short form content that's out there as well. And we've got a lot of other things in the works that I'm not really privileged to say at the moment, but over the next year or so, get ready because we've got some pretty cool stuff coming up the pipeline.
Yep. Yeah, I think with what you just said there, if you get on the internet and just Google search like the arc of a story, like a lot of movies, right? They're built on like the arc of a story.
Yep.
There's a good guy, there's a bad guy, or there's a good guy, and then there's a problem that they have to overcome, and then at the end of the movie or the end of the episode or whatever. And I feel like that episode that just aired when I watched it, and that was the big thing I thought of right away. I was like, wow, you talk about the total spectrum of an arc of a story.
Yep.
And I think that's the interesting thing with Midwest Whitetail on a year-to-year basis is sometimes that the arc of the story doesn't work out. Sometimes some of the guys, you don't track down that buck that you're after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's hunting.
Yeah. I mean, I always joke about you can't control the weather and you can't control the animals.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so sometimes that arc of the story doesn't always come to fruition.
Yep. Exactly. It's super hard to write the script of a story before the story. And that's why it means so much when it comes together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, no, I do that. I do think that's really, really interesting. Yeah. And like you said, that episode, it's pretty insane how that all worked out. And just the adversity that happened for the whole season for him. It was pretty insane.
Exactly.
That was pretty incredible.
Yep.
And just to see how that all came together and to shoot him on the ground and on top of it is pretty insane.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, one of the things too that, I don't know if a lot of viewers really appreciate is the time and the effort and the hard work for guys, that they put in, like Caleb. I mean, he's got a full-time job, and he shares that in the story. But this guy's not getting paid to do this.
Right.
He's doing this because he absolutely is obsessed with whitetail deer and the outdoors, and creating an environment for the herd that is going to make them healthy and give them the best opportunity for survival. And I mean, it's amazing that, to watch how hard and how much work these guys put in every single year, and couldn't be more, proud for Caleb and everybody on the team that was involved, and, being able to make this happen and get this out, to the viewer so that they can experience and see, the excitement that he had as he finally closed the chapter on that Vendetta buck.
Right.
Yeah. That was pretty wild.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. Me and Cole, we've had a really good year. I mean, we've seen a ton of deer, been chasing some really great bucks. Just hasn't come together. And I think we're both kind of to the point where it's it feels like it's becoming more of a grind every single day. And I watch that video and it just it kind of lit a fire under my butt a little bit. You just got to keep going, man.
Yeah. There was a post. I'm not even sure who posted. I was just looking through the phone last night, and there was a guy that, I think it was Outdoor Life, posted it. There was a guy that hunting in Iowa went out after Thanksgiving, like the day before shotgun season, the day before that, on a piece of public ground, and shot like a 210.
Yeah, I saw
just
that.
a mega giant
on public land.
Yeah, on public land. It's not like he got in just reading the small caption, got up in his stand, was just kind of getting settled and looked down, and this book just
walks out, just
walks right towards him.
Yep.
And but yeah, I mean, I tell you what, and I've said this to you before. That's what I love about Iowa.
Yep.
I love lots of different types of hunting. I love big game hunting.
Yeah.
Western hunting in Alaska. But what I love most is adventure.
Yeah.
And the sense of adventure that I feel about Iowa is the fact that when you walk away from your truck and you close the door and you start walking down that fence line, or you walk through the timber, you just never know when you climb up in your stand.
Yep.
You're going to see a buck of a lifetime.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's
not that a deer changes your life, you know what I mean? But man, you can create a pretty unbelievable memory.
Oh gosh.
And that's something, and I think that's what's fun too about Midwest Whitetail. And I think it's been fun for us this fall, videoing a lot of stuff and sharing it with friends. And the most important person for me to share with is Jet.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to be able to show Jet and flip things on. And it's funny, is just to be able to share that memory.
Yep, exactly.
It's like when you hit a good golf shot, you hit a good golf shot, you never forget seeing that ball fly through the air.
Yeah.
And those types of memories, you just never forget.
Yep, exactly.
Seeing that arrow rip through them. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yep. So Chad, the next thing I was going to kind of ask you to talk a little bit about is talk a little bit about the kind of the structure of Midwest Whitetail, because I think a lot of honestly, I don't even really understand 100%. I know that, like you said, there's a couple of you guys that work full time for Midwest Whitetail, but then you guys have pro staffers, you have different shows, you've got guys like Caleb and Owen and these other guys that they're not really employees, but they hunt a lot.
Yeah.
But they also have full-time jobs. And then you've got other guys that are more like regional guys that just send you footage. How does that all work? Can you kind of explain? And then you have interns. Can you kind of explain? Because it sounds like a lot going on. You know what I mean? I'm even as I've tried to explain, understand it from Mick, I'm like, geez, dude, I can't even wrap my head around all that. It just sounds like a lot. It just sounds like a circus. You know what I mean? Can you explain kind of the structure of how that all works?
Sure. Yeah. It's, like I said, a lot of people don't realize what it takes to have a brand like Midwest Whitetail.
Yeah.
And, so basically what it is you have myself. I basically handle, all the partnerships, financials, payrolls, things like that, on the back end. And then we have Josh Sparks, who is a full-time employee who handles production, editing. He oversees all of that, oversees our internship that we have. And I will dive into internship here in just a few minutes. But, and then we have Gavin, who is a full-time producer and editor. We have Drake Lamb, who is also works for us and handles he's doing our social media stuff, things like that. Kind of a social manager. And then we have Rye Ludwig, who is also he basically the way Rye does is he works for Midwest Whitetail, but he also works for Mike Reed directly, kind of Mike's farm manager, handles a lot of stuff for Mike, and so we have him as well, on as far as what I would consider more of a full-time employee. And then, of course, we got guys like Owen and Caleb, Andy, David, those guys, Kane, Zach. I mean, you guys kind of know who are on the main team there, but you have those guys who are on the main team, but they work full-time jobs. I mean, they, whether they're a real estate agent, own a pool company, whatever, they're working 60 hours a week and also, part of the main team of Midwest Whitetail. And that's the content that you will see on the main Midwest Whitetail channel on YouTube.
Okay.
Is all of those guys. And then we have our regional channel. And that channel basically is what we like to call our pro staff. And that's 100 and almost 150 guys across the country.
Crazy.
They're stretched everywhere from basically Louisiana to Maryland. And, what they do is they love and they have a passion for the outdoors just like we do. And what they do is they will video all of their hunts, provide the content, send that content in, and then, of course, they are tied in with our partners and they get, special price and things like that in return. Yep. But basically what we're doing is we're trying to create their stories for them in the most cinematic way possible, and just basically reward them, help them build their name and their communities and get their content out to the general public in a way that they're proud of and in a way that has the Midwest Whitetail stamp on it. And so that's kind of how the pro staff works. And then we have our internship program. So every year we bring in 5 or 6 guys. Nick's familiar with this, to our internship program. And we bring those guys in. And basically what we do is some of them start in the spring. We of course, our goal was for everybody to start in the spring, be able to go through turkey season, have the entire summer to train and learn, what we're looking for and what it takes to create a certain content driven storyline so that when whitetail season rolls around, they're ready to go. They're in the tree, no more teaching, for the most part. They're just rolling. And then at the end of that internship, we try to get them jobs in the industry as those opportunities present themselves. So basically, that internship program is basically like any other. We're just preparing them, training them so that they can, if they want to pursue a career in the outdoor industry, we do everything we can to help get them there so that they can live out their dream like a lot of us are being able to live out ours. So so that's kind of the structure. So you have, basically your main, full-time guys, and then you have the main team guys. If you basically was looking at a flow chart, and then you have your pro staff members, and that's kind of how that works. And then reverting back to your statement earlier, when you was mentioning the June meeting, we have an annual meeting every June where all of our partners, all of our employees, pro staff members all come together. We talk about the upcoming season. Our partners are, basically given an opportunity to share with all of the guys, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what we would like to see. You're doing a good job. You're doing a bad job, whatever the case may be. And, and just kind of a prep time and a fellowship time so that we can all just kind of hang out, continue to build those relationships with one another. And, I think that's what's really created that chemistry for us, especially the last couple of years, to allow us to get to where we are today. I mean, I really would say that we probably have, I'm going to say, the best team that I've ever seen from the time I've been at Midwest Whitetail. The team that we have right now assembled is by far, not taking anything away from our previous teams and employees and things like that, but just the culture, the chemistry, just that whole vibe you get right now when you sit down at a table with our guys. It's like grandma, grandpa, mom and dad, you're just all there. And it's just an awesome, awesome environment to be a part of. And I will say this, if there's guys out there that would like to, look at being a part of that pro staff, I mean, please send us an email and, let us know if there's, if you have questions or, have interest, and we'll do whatever we can. We're going to kick off our internship program again here probably in another month or so. And if you're interested in learning how to film and, you think this is a career path that you want to take, apply. And we'd love to get that application and interview you and see if you're, a good fit for next season. So, it's busy. It's a lot of moving parts, but I don't think we'd have it any other way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's pretty wild. It is a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like you just said. That's how, I mean, Nick, you probably would not be sitting here right now if it wasn't for Midwest Whitetail and the internship and how that all worked out.
No,
you were part of the internship program in 2022.
Yep. And it was the greatest experience of my life, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable. It was just so cool to be like Chad was saying, part of that team and, with guys that are, so well-rounded and, the production side of things, even the hunting side of things. I learned so much, whether it be with the camera in my hands, on the computer, editing, but also it was really cool to learn, from guys. Like I was with Gavin Conturbo a lot.
Yeah.
Public land wizard. He's just a beast. But it was really cool being with him, getting his mindset. And then, yeah, like you said, there's no way I would be here without, that experience that I had. And I got nothing but good things to say about, that team and what they do to get guys ready, for their career moving forward. It was a really, truly incredible experience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll tell you, and we get that a lot too. We'll have guys that walk up at the shows and guys that just call or whatever. Man, how do you get into this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how did you start in this? And it's like, man, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like, sometimes you got to make your own luck.
Yep.
But I think what Midwest Whitetail does in having the internship program is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys don't know where to start.
Right.
If you are passionate about hunting and you want to figure out a way to make this into a living.
Yeah.
Whatever that, in whatever capacity that means.
Yeah.
There's just so many different opportunities within that. You want to be a videographer? Do you want to be a producer?
Yep.
Do you want to be the guy that's hunting?
Yeah.
Do you want to be
land management type thing?
Yeah. Do you want to be on the business side of things?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. I think with what Midwest Whitetail has done with the internship program, it's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think another big thing too is like it teaches you a lot about yourself too. I knew that I loved the filming side of things.
Yep.
Like going into it, I had like a year under my belt of filming hunts, and I just became obsessed with it. But once I got with Midwest Whitetail, that's when I really realized, like, okay, this is the line of work that I want to do. You learn to love it. And I feel like sometimes there could be a guy that learns like, oh my gosh, I actually kind of hate this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so that part is huge too. Like as soon as I got in there and started working with the guys and started realizing the production process from videoing it to putting it together, it really opened up my eyes to like how much I really do love it. So that's another really big thing about that internship program. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's even like Chad, you were talking about the summer meeting. Like I said, I used to be a videographer and did that and did that for years. And then when I started working in Ozonics, I had gone to those summer meetings when it was still with Bill Winke.
Yeah.
And had the opportunity to go down there and talk to the staff guys and talk about Ozonics. But one of the interesting things that I did the first couple years when Bill Winke was still there, and then I think I did it one of the years since Bill Winke has left, was they do like a little like video school.
Yeah.
Or they just do a day where they sit down and talk about, they have their main producers sit there and say, guys, this is what we're looking for.
Yep.
These are the types of shots we're looking to get. It was interesting because, again, I'm inherently skeptical of most things. That's just how I am. Yeah. I don't know. It's just the way I am. So, but I was like, I'm going to go down there and check this out. And it's not like I went there to like try to learn anything. I felt like I was like, I feel like I had a pretty good handle on things. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Maybe that comes off that way, but I was like, I'm just going to go and listen to see what they're trying to tell people.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I actually did learn a couple things, and I felt like they were spot on. I remember leaving there and talking to Jeff and be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Like they are really making sure they're giving everybody the right tools and making sure everybody understands this is how we're trying to produce this stuff, and this is how we're trying. This is the story that we're trying to tell, and it makes sense that it looks like just a lot of stuff going on this end, but it comes out on the other end so clean and looks so professional.
Exactly,
and I think it really starts there.
Yeah, exactly, and it's such a satisfying thing too.
Yeah,
to see that the outcome of what you did in the stand that day.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just it's really cool to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate you kind of going through that because it is a lot. Like I said, it is a lot. It is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Definitely plenty to do. A lot of times not near enough hours in the day to get it done. But
right.
There's a lot of times people don't. We've talked about this. Don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But I mean, there are times that we're up. Not necessarily me, but producers and editors, they're hunting all day and then editing all night just to turn around and get back in the tree stand on an hour or two, sleep, just to do it, to make sure these stories are happening and, the viewership and our followers are being able to be able to get the content that they're getting. And I know, Nick, you had some experience with that. And, and Nick brought up a very good point, that a lot of people do come into this internship program thinking that, hey, this is what I want to do. And then they realize real quick, this is not what I want to do. Just this year, we had a young man come in and, after about 2 weeks, he was like, I apologize, but I don't think this is, I'm cut out for this. This is not really what I want to do. And, and that's fine. We helped him get back home and those kinds of things. But, like I said, there's a lot to learn, within yourself, like Nick said, when it comes to this internship program. But on the flip side, Josh Sparks was an intern. Drake Lamb was an intern. Aaron Warbritton and Zach, Greg, all of those guys, Jared Mills, they all started, at Midwest Whitetail. Now they're being very successful on their own with the hunting public. And, Jared's got his own show. And, there's of course, Drake is back with us now, but he went and spent some time with Phillip. And, so the internship is very valuable, not just from a career standpoint and being in the hunting industry, but it's also valuable in just kind of helping guide you to whether or not this is really the direction that you want to go into or not.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that I always tell people, I used to tell people years ago when I was doing the video side of things. And even now when I talk to people, say, man, I want your job. I want to do what you do. How do you do what you do? I'm like, I'll tell you what, it comes down to one word, and it's sacrifice.
Yep. 100%.
You better be ready to sacrifice.
Yep.
And you have to decide where you draw that line in the sand of what you're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah.
My line always got drawn right down the middle, right on family.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to sacrifice anything that was going to affect my wife and my kids.
Yeah.
And that's where I drew the line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But, and not trying to say that that's what the guys at Midwest Whitetail are sacrificing that way, but in the same regard, if you're a young guy or a young girl and you're wanting to get into this, I think the people that kind of all of a sudden go, oh, this isn't for me. You're like, wow, I don't want it that bad.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing that I see with a lot of the guys at Midwest Whitetail, and I don't know a lot of them from Adam, but what I do know about them is you can see that burning desire and passion for hunting, for whitetails.
Yes.
You can look at a guy and you're like, oh yeah, you got it.
Yep.
You can tell. You can just see it. You can feel it. And if you don't have that,
it's tough.
It's going to chew you up and it's going to spit you out.
100%. That's one thing about, this internship and everything. You need to love it. Like you absolutely have to, because it's a grind. And like a lot of people, I don't think that's another thing, is a lot of people don't realize how much work it really is to produce these hunts and, get it out to the viewers and stuff like that. Just a simple hunt is a lot of work.
Yeah. I remember the first year that I went to Midwest Whitetail summer event. It was when it was still in Albia. Mm-hmm. And there was like this little hotel and it had like a bar restaurant in the hotel. I remember they're like, yeah, hey, we're going down. I was like, oh, okay. And I don't drink, but I'm like, all right. So we like go down there, you know what I mean? And this was after the day, and then we like gone golfing and we did all this stuff. And then we're talking, and I was like, to the couple of guys, like, oh, let me get them straight. So you guys film the hunts. You're like, yeah. And then you come back and then you produce them like the same day. Yeah. And then you post it like the next morning. You're like, yeah. And then you go hunting the next day. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, so when do you sleep? He's like, yeah, sometimes we don't. Yeah. And he's like, so literally, dude, there's like sometimes that, like I just don't sleep. Yeah. And there was times last year you're like, yeah, man, like I didn't sleep a lot like this week or that week, you know, you were filming and then you're producing. Because if you're creating, you can't be producing. And if you're producing, you can't be creating. Exactly. So it's like, you got to find the time.
Yep, exactly.
And so, when we're getting on our phones and we're looking through YouTube and swiping along and we watch a video, you don't think anything of it. There's a man or woman that spent a lot of time working on that.
Exactly.
Probably while we were sleeping, getting it all done. You know,
Yep.
it's pretty insane.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. The thing I was going to ask you about too, Chad, is, again, because I think I look at Midwest Whitetail, I mean, it's a business, right? It's an organization, right? Like you guys you have to run it like a business. How do you guys balance kind of the, I guess the goals as a organization or the, goals creatively, also with kind of, the partnership and the deliverables or the obligations that you have to the partners, right? Because you couldn't do it if you didn't have partnerships with Ozonics, with, Hoyt and not 360 Redneck Ground Blinds or
Real Tree.
Yeah, I mean, So it's like you obviously, and everybody, like, we're just not Ozonics. I say we loosely. Ozonics, Scott Elrod isn't giving Midwest Whitetail a certain amount of money just to have everybody go hunting. Yeah. Like we want something too, right? Like we want them using the product. We want them using the field. We like them talking about it. We hope that influence helps more people learn about Ozonics and buy Ozonics, right? So how do you guys balance that, like the creative aspect of and the goals that Midwest Whitetail has as an organization, but also all this huge list of obligations that you have from your partners? Like, how do you guys do that, like a season to season basis?
So I will say this, Josh and I spent a lot of time with spreadsheets and basically scheduling and delegating. So we're very, very particular about, okay, guys, here's, like, for an example, let's say I got an Excel spreadsheet. It's shared with the entire team. There's a list of deliverables per contract for every partner, and everybody's responsible for certain deliverables, and they have to have deliverables met by X date. And so as we go out, so it's kind of like double duty. Let's just say that, we have X deliverable for Ozonics. All right. So we're in the tree stand, and right then we see a great opportunity to meet X deliverable. Right. So we're creating content while we make X deliverable.
Yeah.
And then soon as we get back, it's put in Dropbox and the notes put in the spreadsheet and the date it was done, where it was done. And so basically there's just a lot of very, very, very minute details that goes into it, and a lot of scheduling. And, anytime we have the opportunity to kill two birds with one stone, we do. Yeah. And then if we have an off day, let's just say the weather's not right and we're not going to hunt, we're going to spend that entire day making sure we're going out meeting those deliverables, whether it's putting together a short or whether it's, creating X, pictures with this scenery or, whatever the case may be. For, say, you guys are going to put together a magazine and you need X amount of pictures that looks like this. We'll go do that and get that taken care of. So it's very detailed. There's a lot of detail, a lot of communication, and a lot of scheduling that goes into that
side of things.
When we're laying those deliverables out and trying to make sure we're meeting those deliverables, per demand of each contract.
Yeah. Because you think about it. It sounds cliche to say, but I've had people say this before. It's like, well, you guys only hunt in the fall. Like, you're only really busy in the fall. And Midwest Whitetail, it's Midwest Whitetail hunting, September through January, first part of January. But it's got to be a 365 a day, a year, it's, they're so you guys are hunting all fall, you're producing videos that are going out there. And then, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and then you guys do the Chasing November that hits in the
August.
Okay, that hits in August. So I would assume they're producing that now through most of the winter, getting that ready. Yep. And then you started doing a Chasing Red, right? Turkey hunting.
Turkey series.
Yeah, which I get all fired up about that. I love me
me too, brother.
I love me some turkey hunting, man. I love me some turkey hunting. So then it just, and then by the time Chasing November starts in August and that starts airing, Kentucky starts first part of September.
Yeah.
That opens up. So then they're hunting again.
Yep.
And it's just all of a sudden, there you go.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and that's pretty wild.
And that's been the biggest, kind of transition for me. Like just as simple as like what I do when I get up in the stand. Like when I was with Midwest Whitetail, it was like, okay, we'd get a shot of the Hoyt, Ozonics, everything, real tree, something. And then now it's like, all I really need to worry about is Ozonics.
We only have one obligation.
Yeah, so it's like that part is like that was been like the biggest change for me for sure. And even like going back to like, in the summertime too, it's like, in the summer, like we'll use Ozonics like if we're going out scouting or something like that.
Checking cams if we're going to a tight spot.
Yeah, exactly. But like when you're with Midwest Whitetail, there was still so many deliverables that, you could knock some stuff off a little bit, like whether it be cutty back or something like.
Yep.
And when you're setting trail cams with the cutty back, that's just as important as filming a Hoyt when you're hunting. You know what I mean? So it's like that was a weird transition for me for sure.
Yeah. The thing that I think is really fun about it, like to kind of tie this all together, it's interesting because we talked earlier in this conversation about, that they're trying to produce high level video and tell a great story. And we're talking about the arc of a story. And I think for me, it's interesting because I feel like you guys have figured out a great way to balance. You're trying to meet partner obligations.
Yep.
You're also trying to tell a great story. So you're trying to use that gear within the story. So it's like, for example, look at Caleb, right? He's out scouting in the summer. He's putting in food plots. They've got gear that they're using. They're setting up trail cameras. They've got gear that they're using.
Yep.
They're scouting all summer. They start hunting in the fall. They've got gear that they're using.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, some guys are killing that deer in that stand, and then other guys, it just happens in more of a unique way.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of figuring a way to tie that all together through the arc of that story. Yep. And like I said, sometimes it starts here and it ends over here, start to finish. And sometimes it kind of stops here.
Yeah.
Doesn't all the way work out. You know what I mean? It's just how it goes.
Yep.
But there's still, even in those situations, there's a story that can be told.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things too, that we pride ourselves in, guys, is, the partners that we have. Number one, we've been with those guys, the majority of our partners, since day one.
Right.
We are loyal to those brands because we believe in those brands.
Yep.
We understand we cannot have the success that we have if we don't have those brands.
Right.
And I'm not knocking anybody else's brand. I'm just telling you the brands that we use, we believe in. A lot of people say, oh, you just using Ozonics because they pay you. No, it's not about the money for us. It's about the success.
Yep.
Right.
Because if we're not successful, we can't sell it, tell the story.
Well,
it works hand in hand. And so for our viewers, people listening to this podcast, I want those guys to really understand we believe in those things. We have bought into those products. We have anytime that we change a partner, it is not by choice.
Right.
It's usually because a brand has sold to a larger buying group, if you will.
Yep.
And they make budget changes and things like that. But I can honestly say that I've never woke up one day and said, oh, I'm going to change partnerships because, I want more money or I want, we truly believe in our brands and we couldn't be successful without those brands. So I always want to get that out there to people because there are people out there that think, well, they just, they're just with this partnership because of the money. That's not the case with Midwest Whitetail for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing, the other thing that I'll say about that, that's, I think a lot of people take for granted when they watch these videos and kind of, I would assume this is, again, I'm just, I think I hit the nail on the head here, but it's a result-driven business.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like Midwest Whitetail goes out all fall and doesn't kill any deer. You can still tell a story, but it's a little bit harder.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like even when you started Ozonics, I've said that even in just not even just trying to harvest deer, but producing video. It's a result-driven business.
Yep.
You've got to produce video. It's about execution.
Yep.
And that's the reality is the stories that they're telling, there's a character in the story that you cannot count on, is unpredictable, that doesn't know the script.
Yeah.
That doesn't want to be a part of the story. None of these deer wanted to die. Right? They're trying to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about that.
Yep.
You know, it's about results.
Yep.
You know, if Midwest Whitetail went 0 for 27, it's not like Ozonics would be like, well, sorry, we can't work with you anymore. But that's going to put them in a real pickle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's a result-driven business. I think sometimes when we all watch this video, it's like, I say it's like watching tennis. You watch tennis on TV, you're like, I could do that. You know, like, and you get out there and you're hitting grand slams over the fence because I can't even get it in the lines. Seriously, I can't. My father-in-law tried to play. He asked me to play tennis one time. It was terrible. I got so mad. I like threw the racket. I'm like, forget this. I'm not playing tennis. You know what I'm saying? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to go out there and kill deer.
Yep.
It's hard to kill deer in general. It's even harder to kill them on video.
Yeah.
With another guy up there with you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I said, I really commend you guys for what you guys do. And I'll tell you what, really, that feels like the perfect segue. You guys have had a bomber of a year. Give me a break. Yeah. It's funny because, and with all due respect, like I don't follow Midwest Whitetail like day to day. Like I'm not like watching every little thing, right?
Yeah.
Like married, 5 kids, a lot of stuff going on here, just a lot going on.
Yeah.
This guy's following it every day. So I'm getting the play-by-play, and it was like, oh, yeah, Owen killed a giant, or Mike killed a giant, then Owen killed a giant, then Mike killed another giant, then Owen kills another big one, and then Drake Lamb kills a big one.
Yep.
And then
Gavin
wounded or missed one, or I don't know what happened, and then he goes and kills that deer later.
Chad kills a great buck.
And then Chad killed a big one in Illinois, and then the one of icing on the cake of all things, Caleb shoots one on the ground.
Yeah.
Like a buck that didn't sound like he had,
not too much history with.
Yeah.
When he had two bucks that he had a ton of history with that got killed by EHD.
Yeah. So it's funny. I have got like the best parts of the whole season just from Nick. You know what I mean? It's been pretty crazy. So yeah, needless to say, it sounds like you guys have had a good year.
I will say this, hands down, the best year in Midwest Whitetail history.
Yeah.
Hands down. And I will go ahead and
good luck next year. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just
hey, there's more coming down the pipeline.
I'm just razzing you. I'm just razzing you.
We're ahead of the game here. So
yeah, I'm razzing you.
Just get ready. We got a couple more already coming down the pipeline, and we still have some tags to be filled. And I mean, like I said, we have been truly blessed to be where we are this season. And, you know, we just FYI, you know, it not just with the hunts, but you know, we creating a new website that's going to launch here shortly.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Heck yeah.
And speaking of the archives, there'll be an opportunity to go back and watch the archive hunt still.
So there you go.
Link for that.
Heck yeah.
And, you know, like I said, the team we're just truly blessed, man, to have what we have right now. And this year has been nothing short than amazing. I mean, it really hasn't been. I was at Owens last week hunting with him. The first shotgun in Iowa, and I got to hold the Loch Ness Monster, and 213 and some change.
That's so big.
Just until you put those antlers in your hands, you cannot appreciate the magnitude that those antlers carry. I mean, it's unbelievable. And of course, Mike's had a phenomenal year, and the other guys, Drake and Caleb, and several guys on the team have just had an awesome year. And like I said, we still have more hunts coming down the pipeline for you guys, and some tags still to be filled. So it's gonna be epic going into the end of December and first of January.
Yep. That's pretty
awesome.
killer.
It's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, you can't argue with that.
No.
That's pretty incredible.
No.
I know. It's like as the season unfolded, I was just like, man, that was. Mike killed one, and then Owens was just like, holy guacamole.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of felt like the dominoes just kept falling. It's like, it was just crazy. Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you know, I feel like I have a lot of respect and a lot of reverence for that because I know how hard I've hunted. I know how hard you've been hunting, and I know how hard it is. It is hard.
Yep.
It is hard to kill big deer like that.
Yep.
It is really hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I mean, it sounds so cliche to say, but they don't want to die.
Yeah.
They live out there 24/7, 365 with instincts that help them survive.
Yeah.
Not only from humans, but coyotes and bobcats and everything else that's chasing them around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they are so smart.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's so many people that can, almost, I don't want to say compare, but look at Midwest Whitetail's season, and then, like, for example, like what me and you have gone through this year.
Yeah.
We look at what Midwest Whitetail doing, and then it just makes you respect and appreciate what they've been able to do this year, and it's really incredible. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, and that's the thing I think too I think, and again, I'm switching gears here I'm switching gears a little bit here, but I think it's kind of on the same lines. Sometimes I think in this whole hunting space in general, not only just in the hunting industry and like the business side of things, and because there's other groups like Midwest Whitetail out there, you know what I mean? There's other people that are trying to do their own thing, and sometimes I think it's like this kind of, from the outside looking in, I feel like sometimes, and you read comments and you look at stuff, it's like this big competition, you know what I mean? But for me, on my side of things, like, man, dude, I just try to be happy for everybody. Like, like, I don't want to be the guy that's coveting.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you know what coveting means, it's basically being jealous and, of what somebody else has or being mad about that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know a lot of the guys at Midwest Whitetail. Like, I mean, I've met them. Like, hey, man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. I don't know them.
Yeah.
But, man, I'm sure happy for them. Like, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Not only just as a partner, Ozonics being a partner with Midwest Whitetail, but just as a hunter, I just think it's so cool.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
without a doubt.
When you were, texting me and I like, oh, dude, check this video out. Hey, so-and-so just killed this one.
Yeah.
That's just so awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Tell us a little bit about your Illinois hunt. That sounded like that was kind of crazy. You were like getting down, right? You just got down out of the tree stand?
Man, it was crazy. So I had my youngest with me, Case, and he's still old enough to have a youth tag. And what happens is if you don't fill your youth tag during youth season, you can utilize that tag the first shotgun season.
There you go.
So he and I decided to go up and
you can do that in Iowa.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah. So if you have a youth tag in Iowa and you don't fill it, you can use it any of the other seasons.
Gotcha.
Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. No, that's great. I'm glad that our states are doing that to keep our young people active and involved. They're in such competition with so many other things, and that's another topic of discussion for another day. But but anyway, so I told him, I said, would you mind if we go up a couple of days early? He had missed any school, so it was one of those deals he could miss a couple extra days, and he was like, yeah, that's fine, let's go. He said, I'll video you. And
there you go.
I was like, hey, we'll give it a shot. And he's never really videoed a hunt. He just, he's played with the camera, he's familiar with the camera. So I told him, I said, be a great opportunity for you and I just to spend some time in the tree, build some memories, whatever. So we get up and we hunt that afternoon, seen some does. The deer was still kind of locked down at that point.
Yeah.
And so the following day, which was Thursday morning, we decided to get up and go sit the same location. It's basically a hardwood ridge that kind of drops down off of two fingers, and there's a little watering hole there, just an old wet spot that holds water. And even in the drought, it still finds a way to hold a little water.
Yeah.
I said, well, if they're running and chasing, they may find themselves over here trying to get a drink, or bucks may cruise and check this spot out. So we're sitting there, and we seen a lot of does and just didn't see any bucks. And I was kind of frustrated, to be honest. And I said, man, let's just get our gear together. Let's climb down, and then we'll sit somewhere different this afternoon, because apparently we're not in the right spot here.
Yeah.
And so we climb down. I take like 5 steps, and Casons goes, oh my gosh, there's 3 bucks chasing a doe. They coming straight to us. And of course I look back to the north and I see a group of does, and I'm like, that's those same does that we saw earlier. And he's like, no, to the south. And of course I'm hard of hearing. I don't hear as well as I probably should.
Mm-hmm.
So I look, and we done got down to where I couldn't see. He was behind me, so he was higher up, so he could actually see the deer. So I just hit the ground. And he's like, one of them's a shooter. I think it's that old 7-point. We've got old bully 7-point that's been in there for 5 or 6 years. So I knock an arrow, and he's digging his camera out of his backpack, and, he's getting all ready. And Sure enough, that doe runs that buck like 15 yards, and he just stops broadside.
Crazy.
As soon as I recognized that it was that deer, I went ahead and shot him, and deer ran like 20 yards, fell over, and I mean it was just, he and I both were just completely just freaked out. Honestly, probably the best way to put it, and the look on his face though, because and this goes back to what we do, trying to invest in the future of the sport, all of those things. The first thing he said wasn't great shot. It wasn't. He said, I got him on camera, and I was focused. I was like, yes. And
you can't fix the focus after the fact. That's the one thing. You better get it in focus, because you can't correct that after. You can't. You can only sharpen it so much.
That's right. And so he was so excited that he was able to get the camera on him and get it, and that's something I'll never forget, because that was our first really hunt together where he was filming.
Yeah.
And it went down like that. And then fast forward to the next day, he goes, and I tried to film him. And this is kind of a deal that, as a father, you'll understand this. Mm-hmm. And that's what I explain to some of our guys. Like, sometimes you make decisions when you have kids that you wouldn't make if you didn't have kids.
Right.
And so he was like, Dad, I want to self-film myself. I want to see if I can self-film my hunt. And honestly, that is not the right thing to do when I'm very capable of basically filming him and doing a quality job of it, right? So that we could utilize that footage. But in my heart, I was like, okay, I don't want to – he's coming off this high from yesterday. I don't want to rob this from him, and I don't want him to think that I don't think he's capable. Because sometimes even if it's a mistake, learning from that mistake is what makes you better in the end.
Absolutely.
And so I said, all right, go for it, buddy. You go right ahead. And sure enough, he goes out there, films himself killing a 10-point. And
that's so awesome.
And so that was a weekend that, that I won't forget. And honestly, I ended up shooting a deer that same evening. Of course, he had the camera equipment, but it was our last afternoon there to hunt. I didn't know if I was going to get to go back. And it was a deer I wasn't familiar with. Definitely come from another farm.
Yeah.
So I took the liberty and went ahead and put my shotgun tag on him.
Cool.
And got it done. And he was a really, really nice, probably 7.5-year-old buck. You've probably seen the picture that was posted on social with he and I together. But that was a weekend that I'll never forget. But the kill off the ground, and then the next day watching him self-film his hunt and see that excitement was. That's one for the books for me, even though my deer was just what we would call a management buck, something we wanted to get out of the herd.
Yeah.
But, for me, it's no longer about score. Yep. It's just about maturity.
Yep, absolutely.
And then watching your kid make a memory he'll never forget, knowing this is just going to continue to drive him to be a part of this industry and, those kinds of things. So it definitely was an exciting hunt, to say the least, and one I'll never forget.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Yeah, like I said, we've had a lot of fun hunting with Jet this fall, a few times here and there. My little boy Jet, he's 7, and we have been taking him out a few times.
Yep.
He shot a little button buck during youth season. You have this lever action 44 mag, and we set up in a stand and in a double stand, and then had Nick above us, and he shot a nice little button buck. And yeah, it's really something.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is.
It's really something, man. It's really fun to get the kids out there.
Oh yeah.
And I think and I'll tell you what, I really appreciate you telling that story, Chad, because like you said, like we were talking about earlier, I think sometimes in this whole thing, and when it comes to filming hunts and working in the quote unquote hunting industry, it's a very slippery slope when it comes to sacrifice.
Yep.
On making sure that you have your priorities in line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
For me, it's God, it's my family, and then it's hunting, right? And I have to make sure, and I have to self-evaluate a lot to make sure that I'm not getting those things out of order.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so I think hearing you say, you know what, it wasn't in the best interest of Midwest Whitetail, of what we're trying to do on a day-to-day. It would have been really nice to try to film him, but really just kind of letting him do that,
Exactly.
And there's been times this fall when it's like, we're trying to maximize everything that we can and every opportunity we have to go hunt, but it's like, you know what, dude, just go.
Yeah.
I'm going to just go with Jet, or I'm going to go do this, and just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
let's just, to try to keep those priorities straight.
Right.
I think is the most important thing. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just think, as far as the future of our sport, of the industry in itself, when you and I were growing up, Cole, we didn't have all of the distractions that these kids and young people have today. Yep. We just had basically hunting in the winter, fishing in the spring, and whatever sports we played. Right. That was it.
Yep.
And then, of course, they come out with a Nintendo, and, of course, that turned into what it is today. But, if we don't create an environment and an atmosphere to where these kids can find enjoyment in what we're doing, they're not going to want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it don't take but, a 10 to 15 year span of a decline of that nature. And then there is no more Midwest Whitetail. Yeah. There is no more Ozonics. There is no more of the things that we love and the partners that we have. Those things go away.
Yeah.
And, I learned kind of the hard way with my 3 kids. I was really tough on my daughter when I first started taking her. And I took all my kids at an early age because that's what my dad did for me. But like when my daughter went, it was like, man, we were going in 8-degree weather, sitting in a lock-on, icicles hanging off of our nose. I'm telling her, don't move, don't talk. Making her get dressed outside in freezing cold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, and then I realized that I really was pushing her away because she didn't enjoy it. It was a miserable time. Yeah. So with my boys, I was like, okay, you want to carry a bag of M&Ms? Carry a bag of M&Ms.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to, we just couldn't take the dill pickle chips. They were just a little bit too strong.
You got to draw the line somewhere. Yeah. No, dude,
but anyway, it's just creating an environment. So any young dads, moms out there that you want get your kids into this thing, man, just make it enjoyable. Find ways to make it fun.
Yes,
and,
I 1,000%
sometimes it takes sacrifice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Exactly. I mean, what do we do every day with time with Jet? You know what I've actually learned? I've actually kind of got a system now. My wife she got him a backpack and it's got a whitetail buck on it. Well, for some reason, Jet he said he said that he couldn't use it for school because deer were going to see it or something. I don't know what it was, some crazy story. So he wanted another backpack. Or maybe somebody made fun of him. He tells this whole story. He couldn't use it. So now that's his hunting pack, right?
Yep.
So I've made him, if we go to we always go to the gas station, same thing. Whatever you want for food. Usually it's M&Ms or sour worms and a pop or something. You know what I mean? But I make him carry it. I'm like, I'm okay, but you're carrying it in your backpack.
Yeah.
But I'm the same way. I'm like, I get pretty hardcore about everything. Like I'll sit in cold weather. Like doesn't matter. Like we're going.
Yeah.
But you have to find that happy medium, right? And even sitting in the ground blind, we've been taking him second shotgun hunting here and bringing the Mr. Heater, bringing a Mr. Heater and bringing a couple extra propane tanks and sitting right beside him, but I'll tell you what, and we're kind of getting way off here, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, for anybody that's listening, that's looking to try to take their son or daughter hunting, where I really feel like there's a great opportunity is turkey hunting.
Yes.
That's such a great way to get kids into it because it's usually pretty action packed. If you sit in a ground blind, you can kind of control the variables a little bit more. You can let them roll around and talk.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. You don't have to worry about your scent quite as much, or if at all, if you are hunting a spot that you're trying not to blow up for your deer season. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just a lot more laid back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's really where I feel like I've cut my teeth with my kids is just let them turkey hunt.
Yeah.
Taking Jet turkey hunting, taking Bo turkey hunting.
Yep.
And just really, and my brother-in-law has gotten his boys out there turkey hunting, and it kind of gets that fire,
Exactly.
And then Jet's all of a sudden like, okay, I want to, he's like, last year, 2 years ago, he's like, I really want to try deer hunting. It's like, okay, well, then we'll try that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it works out good in most states, right? They have the youth seasons earlier, so it's not so dang cold, you know what I mean? And you can hopefully find deer that are a little bit more patternable on a food plot, or they're walking by a camera every day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, like I said, I don't know, like you hear so much stuff about youth hunting and like, are the numbers of youth hunters and the numbers of people hunting, are they going up, going down?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you hear people talk about like in some of these retail stores, like the fishing sections, there's stores where you used to have 5 or 6 aisles of fishing gear. Now they only have 2.
Yeah.
Well, they'll have less fishing stuff because there's not as many people buying it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, I think when like Iowa or Illinois, where they allow youth hunting, you go the youth season, but you can use that tag throughout the season if you didn't get your animal. think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? So they could be able to go and have that more opportunity. Because sometimes, like, heck, we were in Montana at the beginning of youth season.
Yeah, exactly.
Couldn't even take jet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I had to wait until the week after.
Yeah.
It really scrunched us for time.
Yep, exactly.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool to hear, like you said. And I think we do all have to, and I think with what you're kind of, to sum this all up, not only about youth hunting, but just about hunting in general, I think we all do a lot better sticking together rather than being divided. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think there's
100%.
a lot of truth in, there's a lot of truth in that. Like, I'll tell you what, like, I don't know Michael Waddell from Adam. You know what I mean? I've met him in passing. Hey, how you doing? You know, he doesn't know who I am, but I'll tell you what I do love about him is you hear him talking about that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, trying to grow the sport, grow the community.
Yep.
And I love that.
Yeah.
You know, I do. I really love that. Like, look at the sweatshirt you're wearing to Iowa Bowhorn Association.
Yep.
You know, there are those organizations that are out there that are trying to fight for the rights of hunters.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out a way to bring people together. Yep. And I think that's one thing that I'll say about Midwest Whitetail. Like, that's one thing that I feel like I've noticed the difference between with Bill Winke and now is I felt like before, and it's not a knock on Bill Winke, but it was Midwest Whitetail and it was, you thought Bill Winke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you thought when you said Midwest Whitetail. But now with Midwest Whitetail, you think about more of like a team of people and a group and a camaraderie.
Yeah.
Like when Owen, like his hunt, when they recovered that deer, there was a whole pile of people there. I mean, like an army of guys walking out there trying to find that deer. I'm like, I remember watching, I was like, there's no way they're not finding this deer because they've got like 12 people. Like, it's just everybody's spread out and just walk this way.
Yeah,
you know, like,
exactly.
But there's a lot to that. Like, I think that's awesome because we do need to stick together.
Yeah.
We do a lot more together than we do divided.
Yep, without a doubt.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's Nick could tell you that was one of the first conversations I had with him and the interns when we came. Is, hey, this is not a one man show.
Yeah,
we are a team. We are a family. You know, we're going to celebrate our highs together, and we're going to embrace each other in our lows, and that's how we're going to do this. This is no longer going to be about one identity or one person. And when I was in Iowa, just an example about our group of guys, when I was up there last week, I was, of course, with Owen, where he's located, and Mike's probably 3 hours from there. Well, we all met in Albia, which was a halfway point for everybody, and had dinner one night before I left and went home, because I don't get to go up there as much as, of course, I would like to, just because of other obligations that I have. But those guys, they took time. They could have been anywhere, said, man, I'm tired, I'm wore out, I'm exhausted. But everybody drove that hour and a half to that, that halfway point so we could all have dinner one night together before I went back. But that to me, in a nutshell, explains who Midwest Whitetail is in 2023.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, heck, I think that's a great way to end it right there.
I think so too.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Chad, I really appreciate you coming on, man. Seriously, I know, like I said, everybody's got a lot going on. I just appreciate you taking the time and just being so candid and honest with us about everything about Midwest Whitetail. I mean, that's the big thing is I just kind of wanted to, when we said, I think what we're going to start to try to do with the podcast here over the next few months is we're going to start having on a lot more of Ozonics partners.
Yeah.
Midwest Whitetail. You know what I mean? And it was funny because this is the first one, and the first one I said is I was like, well, let's just have Chad on.
Yeah.
Let's just have that. That's who I want to do first. You know what I mean? That was the first thing I said when we talked about that kind of being the idea. And so I'm really glad you came on, Chad. Thanks a ton, and thanks for just being so honest with us and chatting with us.
Man, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me, and of course, thank you for everything you do for the Midwest Whitetail team. We definitely couldn't be where we are today without you. So thank you guys so very much. And if for some reason I don't talk to you before Christmas, I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and get to punch a couple of tags before the end of the season.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's not from a lack of trying. I keep telling Nick, I think we're going to do this thing where we do the opposite of what we think we should do, because I feel like when we go here, the deer come out here, and then when we go here, the deer come out here. Yeah. So we're going to do this like opposite thing, see if that works.
Yep.
Hey, don't hurt to try.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always say the harder you work, the luckier you get, but we've been working really hard. We got a little lucky, but not lucky enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but well, thanks, Chad. I appreciate it. So, end of the episode, I guess.
Yep.
Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. That's the end. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Thanks for watching.
See you next week.
See you next week.